Yeah, so I'll begin. Hello. My name is Erin Almoranti, and I'm the president of Teachers Discovery. And this week, we're going to be hearing from a lot of different people, a lot of different authors. We're going to have a lot of team members join us as well, which I'm really excited about. And I just want you guys to know that if you have any feedback, ideas, or questions along the way, you're welcome to email me. I'd love to hear from you. And to begin, I want to share about a few of my favorite things that are related but not super directly, but I have to. Um, so number one is the CI Summit, which is definitely related to this conference because it's basically a conference about reading, about comprehensible input, about um, you know, acquisition-driven instruction, and it's an in-person conference. It's basically this conference times 100 because it's in person. It's 3 days of focused training and comprehensible input and acquisition-driven instruction. And it's a lot of community building. So basically, this year, this is like, I think our fourth year, and every year it's in a different location. This year it's in Cincinnati, Ohio on July 15th through 17th. So it's 3 full days. The team of trainers are all super experienced ADI teachers, and they converge their powers and team up to bring you like the best in training, seriously. And it's applicable to any language, any level, any curriculum. It's like a very pure training focused conference. And we have super exciting events planned like karaoke and salsa in the square, which is something happening in Cincinnati. It takes place actually at a school. I forget, like it's the one of the public schools in Cincinnati. It's a beautiful school. I went there in January, and it's just like a wonderful opportunity to connect with other language teachers, to deepen your craft, to learn more about comprehensible input. So I encourage you to check it out. And by the way, there will be a lot of QR codes in my presentation. So if you have a phone and you want to follow along that way, you can. But I'll also share this too. Um, but I just wanted to, take a moment to let you know about the CI Summit because it's a really big deal. And um, yeah, just amongst all the other things we're going to be talking about this week, this is one that is relevant if you are here interested in reading in the world language classroom. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention is that if you haven't heard yet, we came up with a new catalog and just a second. Sorry. I just realized I don't know if oh yeah, my video's on. Um, but the new catalog is full of all sorts of wonderful resources, as well as strategies for teaching languages like the Super 7 and Calendar Talk and story asking and just everything. It's a very different kind of catalog. It's more like a resource book, and it's free. And if you didn't get one and you want one, you just can scan this code and go to our website and you can see it here and sign up to get one and we'll mail you one. So it's just full of really great stuff and really encapsulates what we provide here at Teachers Discovery. So check it out. So in these first few minutes, we will discuss why reading matters. So be thinking about that because I'm going to be asking you to put it in chat in a second. We're going to talk about some tools to make reading central in your class. And then I'm gonna introduce the night and week ahead. And then we're gonna hear from some other people tonight. So it'll be fun. And so why does reading matter? Can you guys, if you have some thoughts, like what what is the purpose of reading in the world language classroom? Or, why do you want your students to read in the target language? If you could answer that in the chat right now, I'd love it. And then I'll throw out some of my thoughts on that. So what makes reading important? And it can be reading individually or as a class. So Andrea says it's the fastest, most efficient way to acquire vocabulary. Absolutely. It increases their vocabulary. Absolutely, Maria. So as you guys put other comments, Erica says, I've read that reading helps students gain vocabulary. Yep. So definitely vocabulary is key here and grammar structure familiarity. Absolutely. And Keith says, Crashen says that reading plays a huge role in language acquisition. So absolutely. So a few answers to that question broken down. It provides target language input, which a lot of you guys just said. So it's just a wonderful way to increase students' exposure to the language. It builds confidence. So and I, whether it's a class novel or FBR library and like they were more independently reading, the ability to string words together, to make meaning, to understand a story. I mean, that's like a aha moment for a lot of students, that can really make it so that they want to learn more language. And it builds independence. It allows them to search out their own like items to read in the target language. If they have a curiosity about some aspect of the culture or a topic that they want to learn about, they can go out and achieve that with their own skills that they built through reading. So if we believe reading matters, which I'm pretty sure that all of us do here, then we need tools that make reading easier to implement and that center reading in the classroom. So I'm going to talk about a few of those tools. Um, First up, FVR libraries. So a lot of what we're going to be hearing about this week are ideas about how to use readers in the classroom, especially in like an FVR library situation. And also we're going to be hearing from a lot of authors who have readers that you can put in your FVR library. But why does FVR or free voluntary reading work? So you can definitely put it in the chat and I'll go through some bullets here and we'll see if, they align. So why does FVR work? Well, it gives students choice. And this is huge in my opinion. If students can go up to, like books like we're looking at here in the slide and choose the one that appeals to them. Maybe they're interested in sports. Maybe they're interested on a lower level, maybe a higher level. Maybe they're interested in, traveling or a mystery. They get to choose, and that's huge. As anyone who works with students, with kids knows, if they can choose, they're going to be more invested in that choice. Um, Monique says reading is like flashcards on steroids. That is such a good analogy. I love that. Yeah, instead of just boring flashcards, it's like all these words and meaning between the words. So FBR becomes a routine and expectation in the classroom. You can do it once a week, every Friday, as like, oh, it's Friday. We get to grab a book and read for 10 minutes, or it's every first 5 to 10 minutes of class, like this kind of comfortable easing into the class routine. So that can really, you know, be a benefit of FBR. It also provides a ton of comprehensible input of vocabulary, as we keep saying in the chat, which is great. And it's comprehensible input that they choose, that they are kind of directing and isn't just coming at them. And it builds confidence and independence. So I love this example on the left. This is a picture of our level 1 through 3, I think, German FVR library. And what I like about it is that it's levels 1 through 3 or 4. I'm not sure. I think it's 3 though. But the point is that there are many levels in this collection. So, students may start with level ones and like the easier stuff, but then they might stretch themselves and like, grab a higher level book. And, I think that kind of independence and confidence can really encourage students to grow in their language acquisition. So FVR libraries are one tool that we can put into the classroom to encourage reading. Another one are bookmarks and certificates. So these are a new resource that we just came out with, and I'm just super excited about them because it's like how do we make reading more meaningful, more central in our classroom? Well, we can get bookmarks and certificates, which make reading visible. So suddenly there's like more than just the act of reading, there's like the celebration of reading. They can celebrate reading and students' progress. So the certificates can kind of be used as, like something that you give to students when they achieve a certain number of books read or finish a certain book as a class. The reading or the bookmarks can be used as, visible signs that students are invested in reading and they're using them in their book as they read along and the bookmark travels through the book with them. And they reinforce students' identity as readers. So it's like a minor thing, but it's something important, especially will resonate with some students more than others, where like, these are the items that make me a reader. I have a certificate, I have a bookmark. It's going to just help carry them to that next book to read. So, and then the next resource that I would say celebrates reading and puts it center in the classroom is Story Builder, which I also have right here. Oh, and by the way, I did have the certificates so you can see them. But the Story Builder is something I'm super excited about. So first of all, what is Story Builder? Because it's a very new resource. It's a deck of 100 cards, so you can see the cards maybe in my video. Um, they're in the bag, but there's 100 of them, and there's ones with characters, settings, objects, and animals, and even wild cards mixed in. And so you can pull just one card as you tell a story and like add something new to the story, or you can grab a mix and like work it in together. Um, and then there's also a teacher's guide with a whole bunch of ready to use activities that you can work in using the cards. So what makes this work? It's fun and creates suspense. So if you're co-creating a story with your students, you can add in some new, ideas about characters, animals, objects, whatever. It creates community and supports collaboration because you're going to be doing this as a class. And it creates stories students want to read. Because the story that you end up reading is one that they've participated in and, is meaningful to them as like a memory that they've had creating it with you. So those are some like three resources that can really bring reading as like a center, as a focal point in your classroom. So, okay, let's play Book It. This is, let me just, okay, so it's already open. So how many people here have played Book It, if you put it in the chat? We do have Book It and Voces. So it's something that you can use alongside Voces, and it's a super fun, and I feel like it works with so many different things. So today we're going to play the Party Trivia for World Languages set. There's fun trivia questions for all in English about Spanish, French, Italian, and German cultures. So the first place winner will get a $25 gift card to Teachers Discovery, the second place a 15, and the third place 10. So just so you guys know, this is going to happen a few times this week in between sessions. So, come to the other sessions so that maybe you'll win a gift card for yourself and maybe you'll win today. So let's see. I'm going to play this one. So I'm going to host it and then um, does anyone have any recommendations like Fishing Frenzy, Gold Quest, or Crypto Hack? Does anyone have any favorites? Okay, we'll do Gold Quest. So we'll play and so I'm gonna set it for 4 minutes actually. So I'm gonna make it kind of quick. And I'm gonna host now and I'm gonna turn off the sound. So if you put in this game ID, which I'll also put in the chat. So basically you go to playblookit.com, play.blookit.com rather, and then you put in that code. And then yep, Bev got in, and I'll put the link in the chat too. Hannah, thank you. If that's Hannah from work, I feel like you always win these. So the first, second, and third place winners will be people who are not on the team, just so you know. You can still play though, Hannah. I don't know if you guys have like people at your work or friend in your friend group that like always win. I feel like Hannah is one of those people. She always wins. She's got really good luck or skill. I think it's skill. Does anyone else want to join? And thanks, Hannah, for trying not to win. And I'm just teasing you. It's okay if you win. Okay, so I'm gonna press start and we will play. Hopefully everyone's in that wants to be in. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're gonna start. So you answer the questions, select the chess, collect the gold, and take gold from others. So the most gold after 4 minutes wins. Good luck. So what's fun about these questions, which you guys can use too, if you can look it up on Blookit, um, is that you know, they're pretty obscure, some of them. And depending on your cultural knowledge, some of them are pretty difficult. So they're pretty fun. And I noticed when I started it that like it's a pretty popular booklet compared to some others. So you could play this with your students even. Looks like Lisa's in the lead. And now Melissa. Oh, no, Bev is in the lead now. And just so you know, like, yeah, well, I mentioned it, but in Voces we have a booklet set for every unit. So you can like play booklet as a review for an exam or just for fun one day. I mean, it's all vocab based and pretty straightforward. So and you don't have to have a paid account like you saw. I don't, and you just get a few less like options in terms of types of games, but you can still play with a large class. Ooh, Alan's in the lead. Hannah's creeping up. Oh, now David's in the lead. Keith is tailing him really close. Well, kind of was. That's funny, Kristen. Everyone's like ganging up on Hannah. Well, you guys play this. Let's see if I can get this without. Mm, Actually, I'll wait. It is like watching the Kentucky Derby, Colleen. I need to like find out who on the team has that talent for like, saying like, and now Lisa's in the lead, and now Bev, and all that. But I don't have that talent. It's crazy how the points go up so high, though. It's all that trading or whatever that takes place, or stealing rather. So just under a minute left. Who's going to come out on top? Oh, Hannah's in second place. Lisa's Lisa is back. Yes, exactly. By a lot. 8,000. Oh no, Keith is in the lead. And now Lisa's back. 20 seconds. Monique, Keith, and 10 seconds left. Okay. Oh, look, Hannah. That's so funny. You just couldn't help it. Alan won. Woo, congratulations. And Lisa's in second, and Hannah's in third. Hannah, you just can't help it. You're just a winner. But is that Melissa from I mean, let me see.
No, that's not me, Erin.
Okay. I was like, it's spelled different. So Melissa, you came in third like for the prizes. So congratulations. And actually Melissa, who just unmuted, um, could you jot down the winners so that I can follow up with them later with their gift cards?
Sure, just
Thank you. It's just hard for me to get everyone's names, although I know many of these, but just to make sure. Oh, and Ellen, is that you? That's funny. So actually, let's make Keith. So, well, Alan, can you unmute yourself if that is you? Like,
Yeah, yeah, that's
okay,
me.
the team
Sorry.
member. Sorry, that's
Yeah.
confusing. Okay, so Lisa is the first place winner. Congratulations. Melissa is the second place winner, and Keith is the third place winner in terms of the gift cards. But Alan and Hannah, you two are winners as well.
Thank you.
That was fun. Okay, cool. And thank you, Melissa, for jotting those down.
Problem.
Okay, so this week's sessions, um, just to give you an overview, every evening there's a session at 6 p.m. and a session at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So tomorrow is Veronica Moscoso talking about humor in reading, and then Adriana Ramirez talking about how to pr approach a class novel. She's also going to be on tonight to introduce a new novel. On Tuesday, Margarita Perez Garcia is going to be talking about word clouds, like using them for pre-reading. And then Brian Candle's on at 7, talking about preparing students for challenging texts. And on Wednesday, Nellie Hughes is going to start the night with activities for any novel. And then Eric Richards is coming on at 7 to talk about questioning and personalization to complement stories. And then Wednesday at 6 is Marta Yednick talking about low prep activities for reading. And then Andrea Caulfield talking about flexible reading strategies. So this week is full of awesome advice about ways to enhance reading in your class. If you're looking for activities to do before you read a novel, during, after, or how to like kind of make FVR reading or independent reading more interesting or um, more investment by students, then this is your week to get those ideas because there's going to be so many. And all of these people here are authors of readers themselves and, know what goes into producing a leveled reader that's fit for, level one, level two, et cetera. And so they really know how to get the most out of that crafted reading experience. So stay tuned or come back, every day. And also know that we will be recording all of these sessions um, and yeah, we'll be emailing you throughout the week or messaging in various ways, like on social media and stuff, kind of reminding you of what's up next. So stay tuned for that. And then tonight's agenda, we're going to have some like short sessions on different aspects of reading that are coming more from Teachers Discovery, as well as a book launch at the end by Adriana Ramirez. So first, we have Erica Poplinsky-Burge talking about the free sub plans that we have on the website, as well that you can also use as any day plans. And then Justin Slocum Bailey is going to be talking about 3 easy ways to hype up reading. And then Melissa Ferguson is talking about building an FVR library that students will actually use. And then finally, Adriana will be up to introduce her brand new beautiful book, Clementina. Um, and there's the book. So thank you. And please, this is the link that I was going to mention earlier, and I'll just click on it to show you. We'll be dropping this in the chat throughout the week, but it's a collection of all the resources that we'll be talking about this week. Everyone's books, um, relevant reading materials, etc., that you can just use to explore if you want to. So, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us. Please email me anytime with ideas, feedback, etc. And now I want to introduce Erica, and I just want to make sure she's here
I
before.
am.
Okay, cool. Hey.
Hey.
So, oops, I didn't mean to do that. So up next is Erica to talk about free subplans and any day plans. And I just want to introduce Erica really quick. Um, So Erica is a neuroscience loving Spanish teacher with over 18 years of experience teaching students from kindergarten through 8th grade. She was also named the 2020 MULA Teacher of the Year and was also a recipient of the Barbara Ort Smith Award this last MULA uh, in 2025, like the Michigan World Language Association conference. She spent several years as a curriculum developer with Voces, and still works with us. Yay, us. Today, helping lead professional development and teacher training, but recently had the wonderful opportunity to go back to the classroom to teach her son's Spanish class. So we're really happy for her with her transition, but we also miss her on a day-to-day basis. But we're also really lucky to still work with her like tonight. Erica is passionate about helping teachers find brain-friendly ways to help students acquire language joyfully, and we're always thrilled when she gets to share her ideas with us. So let me stop sharing and give you co-hosting privileges.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. And I am also, it was, even being my son's school, it was hard to leave Voces because Voces is dear and near to my heart. But happily, I can use Voces in the classroom with my son's school. And so I get to kind of have all of the best parts and still work for my Voces people and my Voces teachers, which fills me up in all the ways. So today I'm going to talk very briefly about something else I'm really excited about, which are low prep, no panic sub plans that build acquisition. And Erin let me work on these over the summer, and they are for sub days or for any days when you are just exhausted and you need someone else to do the heavy lifting, but you still need your students to be making progress. And so I tried to create something that was truly just plug and play for the teachers, and the students would get to do all of the work and still have a really great experience. So these sub-plans are in English, French, Spanish, German, and Italian. And there's a teacher's guide here. And I want to make sure I point out that the teacher's guide is not only for you to tell you how to use the sub-plans, but there's also a part that you can plug in information for the substitute teacher. So they can just read how to use these plans with students. And you can just write down a few things like the times that your students need to be in the classroom and just really give it to them and go. I have used these sub-plans this year, and I had a substitute write me a note that she didn't hope that I didn't mind that she took them with her because the sub plans also end with a bunch of things that students can do if they finish early or extra projects students can do. So she then said they were the best sub plans she'd ever seen and she was going to take them with her into the classroom, which made me feel pretty happy. So there's two sets of plans. One is to go with any sort of cultural reading or reading about another country or like an informational reading. And the other is to go with any story you might do with your students. So this is one I did this year. These are about the skaters in Bolivia that are the women skaters that dress in traditional clothes, which was really fun for the students to learn about. But I had to be out, so I just left them this story to read on their own. And then they got to do the read, reflect, and connect. Now, the read, reflect, and connect that I am showing you, which is to go with any story, is all in English. However, the ones for the different languages, like Spanish, French, German, or Italian, are all in the target language. And basically, there's things that students do to pre-explore to get their brains ready to read, where they talk about what they think the story is going to be about and what pictures they see. And then they get to go ahead and try and figure out some key vocabulary and choose 6 new words from the article and define them and draw a picture so they can make some vocabulary connections and work with a friend. They get to write down 3 facts from the story, ask a question, and then they get to create a Venn diagram to kind of sketch out the information that they understood from the story. So not only are they acquiring new vocabulary, but also they're showing you what they know. Then they get to answer who, where, what, who the story is about, where did the story take place, and what happened in the story, and write a little summary. I always tell my students if they can write it all in Spanish, which is the target language for me, write it all in Spanish. If they need to do a mix of Spanish and English, do a mix of Spanish and English. If they can only do in English, just do that because that's going to show me right where they're at, right? The kids who can only respond in English, well, that's not nothing. They understood the story, and that's exciting that they could do that on their own. The kids who can do a mix of Spanish and English are starting to be able to produce on their own independently, which is exciting. And then the kids who can give you all sorts of details in Spanish that shows right where they're at as far as their comprehension goes. So they get to answer some who, what, where questions, ask a question about the story, do some cultural connections, some personal connections, and then have some conversations with a partner. And then as you can see, there's a finished early section, and they can do a little bit of writing. They can create a mini poster. They can do a social media post or practice speaking, or even go ahead and do some more research on the topic. So kind of something to appeal to all of students. And more importantly, something so that they stay busy and productive during class, and you or the sub doesn't have students that they're trying to manage because there's always something for them to do. The other plans are meant to go with any article, and this is an article about Amia Skate, which is a group of Bolivian skateboarders who all dress traditionally that goes with the story, and I actually use this as a follow-up to the story we just read, and this is also from Voces. And as you can see, it's a very similar format, but it's set to go with an article about something. So they could talk about what they already knew about the topic, again, choose the key vocabulary, write down important facts, ask a question, draw a diagram, make some cultural connections, and then again, there's a bunch of different finish early projects that they could do. All of this comes along with information for you about how to use it and actful alignments, as well as suggestions for how to make it work differently for beginner, intermediate, and advanced students. So you know how to, this can make this appeal to all of your students and ways you can use it with your existing materials, as well as this plug and play plan for substitute teachers. And they can just plug in their information and print it out for them. And then you are done with your sub plans, and the substitute teacher feels confident that they have plenty to do. So I'm going to just throw this in the chat, and this is there for all of you. And I hope that next time you are sick or just need a day, oh, it's already in the chat for me, that these will come in handy because I designed them with all of us tired teachers in mind, because the last thing we want to do when we are exhausted is spend 5 hours writing sub plans. So I hope this was helpful to all of you, and thanks for letting me share it tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Erica. That was perfect. That was like super efficient and so insightful on how to use the subplans, which are so versatile. Um, and I just love how like one targets stories and the other targets like more nonfiction. And so, it's just like whatever you're doing in class already, you can fit it in. And I also dropped in the chat, if you haven't checked out Voces yet, I dropped in chat a link to sign up for a free trial, which is where you can get those wonderful stories and articles that Erica just showed us. Um,
I do have to say, with being dropped into the classroom mid-October, because I started, like, I found out the day before that I was going to be in the classroom the next day. BOSAs has really helped me to lift some of the stress off and still feel like I'm doing great things with my students. And I don't always like feel like I'm scrambling for like, what's the next thing I'm going to teach? So I'm very
oh,
grateful for
I
BOSAs
love that.
in a new way.
And good. That's so wonderful. It's a lot of the content that you created yourself.
I know, that
Um,
word also.
well, thank you so much. And again, we'll put the link to the subplans in the chat, like we already did, but we'll put it there again in a minute. So now next up is Justin Slocum Bailey. Um, and he's going to be talking about, which I just kind of, oh yeah, 3 easy ways to hype up reading. Justin Slocum Bailey is our director of teacher training. And so he is a former teacher and has been working as a curriculum developer for BOCES for a while, and has also dove into a lot of things to do with Flangoo, and which we'll also put in the chat. Um, and he's just like overall so experienced and has so many great insights to share, and I'm very excited for to hear his insights on reading. So Justin, if you want to take it from here, I'll make you co-host right now.
Thank you. And will you actually, although maybe making me co-host will give me that ability, would you spotlight me for folks? Because
Yes.
I'm actually going to be presenting as opposed to sharing my screen. I'm going to have everything kind of here off to the side of me, and that way people don't have to fish around. Did I just get
Yes, you
waved in your
did.
face along with this lovely spring into reading graphic that Aaron supplied. So, like Aaron said, we are going to be talking about 3 ways to hype up reading. What I mean by hype up in this case is both get students excited about a specific story or a specific book, and get them excited about reading in general. Like, oh wow, the kinds of stories, the kinds of texts that we have available in this class are actually fun to interact with. And I mean, not just hype up in the sense of excitement, but also actually preparing their brains for understanding and enjoying the story itself. So there's not just like an empty excitement that's disconnected from what they're going to actually experience in the story, but it's actually tied into their upcoming successful reading experience is going to make that experience more successful as well. So I said 3 ways, but depending how you look at it, depending how you subdivide it, you can get like 8 to 10 things that you could try tomorrow if you so chose. So here's what they are. Here's what I've called them, and you'll notice a little pattern. A single slide, that's a strategy we're going to talk about. A double poll, which is another strategy we're going to talk about, and then what I'm going to call a triple taste. So we're gonna have that kind of ascension: slide, poll, and taste, single, double, triple. Let's dive right into the single slide. Here is your slide. This is exactly how you can create your slide. I can also give you a template for this, although it's super straightforward, super easy. So the idea behind single slide is on just one slide, you collect a couple different things. They're going to whet the appetite for students, get them interested in the story, and help them start using and understanding some of the language that might be involved. So first, quite simply, is you're going to grab a picture from the book, an illustration. Let me actually, just for our sake, let me zoom in on this one a bit more. This is an illustration from a book that's available at Teacher Discovery and in Flangoo. Take a close look. Feel free to lean in if you want. Everyone's looking at the picture, so no one's going to see like your pores when you lean way in. It's okay. Although I'm sure your pores are glorious. You don't have to worry about that. Lean on in. So the picture is, of course, going to be an excellent way to get students kind of hooked, but also to help you start having a conversation with students about content and the content that's going to be in the book. So you can use all the techniques and questions and things that you may already like doing with pictures. If picture talk is the thing you do or something you're familiar with, that's you can use any of those techniques. If you want some tried and true kind of guaranteed to work with pretty much any picture, you can do what some teachers at Harvard got together and came up with, which is this routine called the See, Think, Wonder routine, where you ask students in the target language. Of course, you can teach students really quickly how to say these things in target language or what the questions mean. It starts with observation, then kind of some interpretation, and then some extension kind of outward from what you've already figured out. So what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? I would love to do this with you all in the chat and things like that. In fact, I won't stop you from putting your answers in here, but because I want to, these are these sort of lightning rounds, I'll just give you this concept. I've come up with kind of a version that amounts to a very similar thing, but feels simpler to me, and I think feels simpler to students. And it's simply this. It's not the exact same thing. I've shifted the order a bit, and I just call it look, ask, guess. So in the first phase, students are just going to look at the picture, and I usually have them just make statements. They can holler them out as a group or with a partner, just anything they see. And I tell students, hey, say what you're up for. Depending on your level and your mood and your energy, maybe you're just saying colors that you see in the picture. Maybe you're being more descriptive. Like I see 4 dogs. I see them in a window. It's raining hard, maybe even storming. All those things could be from the look phase. Then ask. I tell students, we're gonna brainstorm as many questions as we can. We're not going to try to answer them even. We're just going to be curious and ask questions. And then once we've done that for a bit, I have students make some guesses. And if you want to simplify this, even make it even less open-ended feeling, you just say, now we're again going to make statements, but all our statements are going to start with maybe, whatever that word is in the language. So maybe, tal vez, peut-être, vielleicht, whatever it is in the language that you teach, we're going to make lots of maybe statements. And of course, these are things that then there'll be some payoff when students actually read this story, because they'll find out some of their guesses were right, their interpretations were right, and things like that. So this is a great thing to put on your single slide as a way to launch into reading. The one last idea for something that could go on this single slide, although over the course of my remaining few minutes, some of the things from the other strategies, the double poll and the triple taste, you could also put on this slide. So these are not like completely separate things. They're just 3 different ways of looking at that hype up the reading process. What I've done here, and I've supplied this quote just for the non-Spanish speakers here. It's the book is in Spanish, and this is a quote from the book. It's kind of meta because it's in the book, but in the book it's quoting the at the time president of Venezuela, who was quoting Simón Bolívar from 200 years earlier. But it says, si la naturaleza se opone, lucharemos contra ella y haremos que obedezca. Nature opposes us, we'll fight against it and make it obey. And so you can have a discussion of this quote. Hey, do you agree? I like to ask students, hey, good idea or bad idea? You can ask this about an amazing number of sentences that you might see in a book. Good idea to oppose nature or bad idea? You can make it more refined. Hey, what are some situations where it might be a good idea to oppose nature? If I put up an umbrella, am I opposing nature? Kind of, and maybe it's a good idea. But there are other things that might not be, right? This is kind of a bonus here. I sometimes like to do this in something I call a continuum, where I have students spread out according to their, like in the room, according to their answer to this. Instead of spreading out because we're virtual, we're going to put our hand really close for like strongly agree it's a good idea, and really far away for maybe a bad idea in general. If you just had to gauge in general, if nature opposes us, we will fight against it and make it obey. Good plan, or bad plan, good outlook or bad outlook. Hand really close to the camera for, that's great. Yeah, let's do it. Hand really far. And of course, you could explore with students whatever level of, whatever depth you might want to go into. And yeah, I see Lisa and others in this chat, bad plan. And this, of course, I've chosen this quote because if I were going to be reading this book with students, or even if this book is just in my student library, my classroom library, and students are going to come across it, this question is kind of a central question. It's not written as a question, but the question of, is this quote like represent a good idea? What are the outcomes from this mindset? That will be, I don't want to say answered, but we'll get various ways of addressing that as we read the book. So this is the biggest one. It took a little longer than the other two that I'm about to give you, but this is the first idea, a single slide, kind of this overview. And again, you can do this for a specific novel that you know you're about to read, or you can do this like in the first month of class as you build up to maybe an independent reading program. Do one of these every couple of days for a different book that's in your class library to get students excited. Like, oh, I'm excited for when we start this reading thing because that picture looked great. I love dogs. Interesting quote. When it's independent reading time, I'm gonna go grab that book. So that's also what I mean by kind of hyping this up. Okay, let's do the two simpler ideas so I can pass you on to the next person who's going to share. Let me look here, see what's next. Okay, next, this is the double poll. Most teaching ideas that someone shares with you, they're not the person who invented that. They picked it up somewhere here or there. This is one of the few ideas that I think I literally invented. I didn't invent the idea of the poll, but I'm the one who decided a single one wasn't enough. It's like when the person came up with a hotel chain called Tree, and someone else was like, no, Double Tree. Same thing. I heard of a poll. No, double poll. So here we go. Here's how it works. You always ask first a question. Okay? It's kind of a content, an opinion question. It's got to be something that everyone has an answer to. And ideally, it's a binary thing. I know in general it can be complicated. Like a lot of questions aren't binary, but in this case, there's such a thing, right? There's such a thing as saying, yes, I have a pet, or no, I don't. And we can talk about that. I can ask follow-up questions. What kind of pets do people have? At Teacher Discovery, we've been actually sharing pictures of each other's pets and getting to talk about those. So it's lots of fun. Here's what makes it a double poll. I'm now going to ask, because this is like kind of interesting. We kind of lucked out. Pets are an interesting topic, but you can use a double poll to make even a boring topic interesting. What it's going to be is it's going to be another question that kind of intersects with this one by asking how the person feels about their answer to this question, or if they think they're in the majority or the minority, or if this has always been true for them or not. See how there's it's not a new content question, it just intersects with it. So to use that example, how do you feel about that? Now we have four quadrants. We have some interesting quadrants. Like some people have a pet, they love their pet, they feel great about it. Some people don't, they wish they had. Some people don't have a pet. Where are we here? Oh yeah, some people don't have a pet, they feel great. Some people have a pet, but they're like, I don't like it. It's too much work. It's really like my sister's pet. I feel less than great about it. Some people don't have, do you see what I'm saying? We're creating a greater opportunity for there to be actual interesting answers. And of course, I've selected this question based on the same book that we were looking at a moment ago. In fact, I didn't point out right there. Let me go back here. This is the book Orion. Orion is the name of this Rottweiler. It's based on a true story. Margarita Perez Garcia, who's an expert crafter of stories, especially for novice students, put this one together. So all of the examples that I've come up with are based on that. So that was the double poll. Let me go back there just to recap. It's a content question and then some intersecting meta question. How do you feel about that? Has it always been like that? Do you wish it were different? Do your friends feel the same or don't they? Something like that. Make sense? Okay, last idea, then I'll pass you on, which I'm going to call, let me find it here. It is going to be the triple taste. So we're going to give people three of something that are in some way a taste of the story or the text, and also kind of send them on their way with it. And what we're always going to do is we're going to have some kind of content or a source that we're giving to students, and it's always going to be three of something from the book. What do I mean by that? I mean, for example, three pictures from the book. descriptions of three characters, like a quick little like character profile, three quotes. I had one quote before, but in this triple taste, we would give them three quotes, maybe three longer excerpts. Maybe a would you rather this, or this? Three choices. So that's our triple taste, our three things of content. And then we're going to give students a task to do with that. And what task they do with that might depend on which of those things we've chosen. But for example, that might be a compare and contrast. Like you have these three pictures from the text, compare and contrast. Maybe of those three pictures, you choose your favorite and you say why. Maybe if it's a picture, you caption the pictures. Maybe it's a quote. You instead draw something that represents the quote. So it depends a little bit on which option you do. Maybe it's an excerpt and you write comprehension questions that you're going to pass to your neighbor and they're going to discuss. So this is the triple taste. You could also, of course, do a double taste, but then I wouldn't have had the cool single, double, triple thing in the presentation. But you could totally do it, of course, two pictures, two quotes, etc. So let me put them all back in one place for you to see so that, and here we go. We have the single slide, one slide with a couple different types of content from or relating to the story, a double poll, main content question, and an intersecting question to make it more interesting, obviously about one of the stories in your library or the story you're going to be reading. And last but not least, a triple taste where you take three of something, picture, quote, you name it, and have students do one of those tasks with it. So there you have it. Enjoy hyping up reading in one or more of those ways.
Well, thank you so much, Justin. Those are
My
very
pleasure.
great ways to hype up reading, and they're very fun. And yeah, like super useful. And I feel like it's like any story would fit those. And also, I was thinking like it just I can't help it, but I'm like single fly, double fly, triple fly. I don't know. But your double tree thing was very funny. But yeah, that was great.
I can't take credit for that. I mean, I'm inspired. The late, now very late comedian Mitch Hedberg had this routine where he was trying to picture like the board meeting where people were deciding on the name of that hotel, and one guy suggests tree, and they're like, it needs something else, and someone else comes up with double tree, and they figure it
Oh,
out.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah,
And now I'll never see a DoubleTree hotel the same. So,
I haven't.
and yeah, I agree with Monique. This was
Yeah,
so
yeah. So Kristen
flexible.
says, I want to know the fate of these animals. That's the whole point of this triple taste, these teasers, is to to get students really wanting to check out the book. Again, here's the one in question.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And I put the link to that book in the chat. And
Oh,
yeah, well,
nice.
thank you so much. Okay, so up next is Melissa. And let me make it really quick. So you're,
Here, I'll remove the
yeah,
spotlight.
I got it. That was great though. I'm really glad you did the spotlight. I kind of forgot about
Mhm.
that option. So Melissa Ferguson is many things on at Teachers Discovery as well. She has been a curriculum developer like Erica and Justin, doing a lot in the realm of orchestrating the creation of the wonderful Voces curriculum. And more recently, in the last year, she's pivoted to marketing more. So she's the person who writes and designs now many of our emails and social posts, and she does a fantastic job. And in both of those roles, or in all of the roles that she's taken on, she really brings teaching, like her experience teaching, to the role. So she's taught Spanish and French, and she just has an uncanny ability to like really understand how a particular resource could be used in a classroom or what a teacher, what usefulness a teacher would see in it. And she, brings that not only to her emails or like in the understanding of developing curriculum for teachers to use, but also in her inspiration guides, which I'm going to drop in the chat a link to them. Our inspiration guides, which are really Melissa's inspiration guides because she wrote them all, are these wonderful guides that are like ideas to use with resources that you probably already have in your class or resources that purchase at Teachers Discovery, things like stickers, posters, readers. Specific games, but also more general topics as well. And you can see all of them listed on that site. But I just have to say that like these inspiration guides, every time she would send one to me in my inbox and I would read it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, those are like brilliant ideas for like ways to, I don't know, use like pencils and stickers to just make your class more fun. So Please check them out. And today she's going to be talking um, about building an FBR library that students actually use, which is something that she touches upon in her inspiration guide on readers. So, Melissa, let me make you co-host and you can take it from here.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction, Erin. I am going to be turning my video off in just a second here, but I wanted you guys to see that I'm a real person, but my rural internet does not play well with Zoom whatsoever. So here I am, but now I am gone. All right, and let me go ahead and share my screen. Too many tabs open. That is like my big weakness. Too many tabs. Are you seeing my presentation here? Yes, okay,
Yes, we are.
awesome. And I do Zoom about twice a year, so it's always like my first time every time. All right, so this is building an FBR library that students will actually use. And so we're going to look at some things that you can do to make your FBR library very strong so that your whole program will be very successful with your students. So we're going to be looking at 3 questions. Number 1, what kind of books should I get? Number 2, once you know what kind of books you want, how do I build this library? And then number 3, I've got my library, now what do I do? I'm also going to be giving you guys a lot of free resources from Teachers Discovery, so I'll be dropping those into the chat or trying to, because, you know, like I said, this is always it's like my first time on Zoom every time. So here we go. All right, so the first thing is that the success of your FBR library starts before you even get your hands on any books. So you need to create a class culture of reading where you're focusing on your high frequency verbs. You're reading from the very first day. Even if your students are just reading one sentence, get them reading and get them reading right away. Start with your smaller text. Like I said, one sentence is good. Work your way up throughout the school year. And you need to have that mindset. You know, you need to convince yourself first before you even convince your students that, yes, I want to do FBR and it's important for my students to do this. So I do have a free resource for you. This is not something that I really have time to touch on today, but we do have a blog post from our Inspired Teachers blog that I'm going to drop in here. And you can take a look at that, and that's going to give you great ideas as to like, why do I even want to do FBR? So if you're not convinced, you got, check that out and you're going to be convinced. You're going to know, I really do want to do FBR in my classroom. All right, so now to the really important things. First of all, what kind of books should I get? Because that's where you need to start. If you're going to do a library, you need to fill it with books. So you need to have books for everyone. You should have books that match every of your students' interests or your proficiency levels. And this is probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think of FDR is, you know, I need to have books for all of my students. So the great thing is so many teachers, so many authors have been coming out with more and more books that there really are books about pretty much everything. So if you have students that like sports, you're going to find tons of books about sports. If you have students that like to cook, you can find books about that, travel, history, sci-fi, all of those things. So you can get books for all of your students' interests. And another great thing is that these are leveled, like all of them are leveled so you can see, your students can see, this is where I should be because I know I read at a level 1. Or I know I'm a little bit more advanced, so I can go to the next one. And your students can really manage themselves. They can pick out the books that are the best match for them based on what they're interested in and based on how well they can read. Another thing is you need books with backbone. So you need books that are going to support your students every step of the way. So you want to look for books that have illustrations to support your students' comprehension. They should have a glossary at the end of it. So if your students come across a word that they don't know and they just can't move past it, they can flip to the glossary, figure that out. Audio is also great. So if you can get books that have audio reading to your students, that's going to help them understand so much more. And video content also. So I know that Flangoo, a lot of books on there have the video content to go along with it, which is just going to supplement your students' understanding so much better. So it might seem like overwhelming to have to find books that do all the things for all the students. But the good news is you don't have to go scrolling and like searching through tons and tons of books to find the books that are right for your classroom. So I do have another free resource for you all that's going to make it easier for you to pick out the books that your students are actually going to want to read. And that is our Find Your Perfect Reader survey. And I'm grabbing that link right now so I can drop that into the chat. This is great. You can look for the things that you really want your students to learn about. So if you have certain teaching goals in mind or social emotional goals, something like that, look for those in this survey, and it's going to pop up books that are going to be perfect for your students to read. You can specify the level that they're at, your language, all of these things, and you're going to find these readers that are going to be perfect for your students in your classroom. All right, so you're finding the books. How do you take these books and actually build a library? First of all, you need to give yourself permission to start small. Your library is going to need room to grow. So start with your heavy hitters. Look at the ones that you know your students are absolutely going to love. Start with those and then add books over time. And keep in mind that every FVR library, I don't care how long you've been teaching, your library is still a work in progress. You don't have to have them all at once, and you don't have to have a full FVR library to have a successful FVR library. Next, one of a book is not done. So this is not a one and done thing. If you have a great book, you need to have multiple copies of it, especially if it's something that's really high interest for your students. If your students are waiting and waiting and waiting because one of their classmates is reading a book that they really want to read, they might become discouraged, or they might lose interest in the whole FVR thing and just like, I'm not going to read anymore because I want this book and I might get my hands on it. So make sure that you have several copies of books, especially ones that you know that your students are going to devour. And next thing is you need to get help. I mean, you can't build this library all by yourself, and you should not have to break the bank, either your school's budget or your own budget on books. So one of the first things is, think about grants. And that's actually how I was able to build my FBR library when I was a teacher, is I applied for a grant and I got it, which was awesome. And so I was able to bring all of these books into my classroom. So look online there's websites out there that'll tell you how to write your grant proposal. I'm not an expert on it. I actually used a textbook from a class I was taking, and that's how I was able to get my grant. So don't think that you have to do that alone either. You can find websites that will help walk you through that. And also ask your community. You have people in your school, in your community, that are so willing to help you out. And that brings us to our next free thing. There is a wish list on the Teachers Discovery website. So if you've got books that you've picked out and you would really like to have those in your classroom, but you just can't swing it, and your school can't swing it right now, ask your community for that. And here comes the link. So use that, share it with your community, and let them know, hey, we've got these things and they're going to be so beneficial to our students in XYZ ways. So please help us to bring those into our classroom, and get your community involved with helping you to better your students' education. And you also need to go just beyond books. Don't think that an FBR library is just novels, because it doesn't have to be. And class texts are a great thing to bring into your FBR library. First of all, they're high interest because this is something that students created for themselves. So obviously they're going to be interested in it. It's on your students' level. If your students wrote it, your students can read it because it came from them. It's familiar because they've already been through, they've talked about it. So this is not something that's going to be way out of left field that they don't understand. It's personal, again, because it came from them. So if they've got that connection with it, they're going to want to read it even more. And of course, it's free. So if you're really struggling to put together that FBR library with your novels, buying all of those things, start with the free stuff, build that up, and then, slowly add your books over time. And so I got lots of free resources for this one. First of all of these things that I'm giving to you are coming from the catalog, which Aaron already, plugged a little bit, but it is so great. I think it's more like a magazine than a catalog. It's got so many ideas and stuff in it. So definitely request a copy of this if you haven't. And here's a link for that. And just because I'm seeing that you guys are freezing, so I want to make sure that I'm not frozen. Can you still hear me okay? Am I good?
Yes, we still hear you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. All right. So all of these things are coming from the catalog. And the first one is special person interviews. So what these are is Super 7 interviews. So you're asking your students some things about themselves using these Super 7 verbs. There's a generic English one right here, but then I have you an example of one in Spanish with some pictures that go along with it. So what you would do is you would have each of your students create one of these slides, And actually, let me get that for you guys first before I forget to put the link in. So this link has like teacher instructions for how to do this. It's got the slides that you would create with your students so that they would go through and do all of this. You talk about their slides with the super 7 verbs. And then when you're done with that, do a write and discuss or summarize it in some way. And then what you could do to put this into your library is print out their slides that they created with all of their pictures on it, and then put the write and discuss that you did or a little summary about that student with it. And then you would have a page for each student with their slide and the description of what you guys talked about with that student. And so your students could go through and they could read about every single person in the class, remembering what it was. You've got the pictures there that's going to aid their understanding of what they're reading about. So this is a great way. It gets your students familiar with the super 7 verbs, which are huge for building a basis for language. And it gets them to know each other better too, which is great for building community. Also, if you like doing this with your students, this you might want to take it a little bit further and try the Q&A Somos that we have. This is new for Teachers Discovery, and it's just a great way. It's a whole bunch of interviews that you would do with your students, and then you can take those interviews after you've talked about it with your students, and you can turn that into reading material as well. So have a page for every student or a page for every topic, and just talk about what your students were talking about. Put that in writing, and they can go back and they can reread it. Our next free resource is Story Asking Scripts. And story asking is a great way to build text for your classroom because these are stories that your students create for themselves. So let me drop this into the chat as well. Lots and lots of links for you guys today. All right, so this is the free one. There is a script for Spanish, French, and German with this. And you would just go through and you would ask the story and throw in all of the details that your students have. And then your students could go through and they could read these again. And since the stories have a personal spin on them, it's going to be interesting for them to go back and read them. Also, because students have such creative minds, other classes will want to go through and read what other classes have created. So even like last year's students wrote this story and this year's current students would love reading it. So definitely try asking stories with your students. Now, this free resource I gave you just has one story per language. So if you want to do this more, if your students really buy into the story asking thing, you might want to try the story builder because it gives you so many more ways to add some fun twists into your stories. So here's the link for that. And Erin did plug this one already too, but I love these story builder cards. There's just so many ways to add twists to your story so that it never gets old that you're asking stories with your students. They don't get bored of it because there's always some sort of new twist to add into it. And our next free resource is Picture Talk. And this is a free resource that has 3 pictures to go along with it. And you just ask your students questions about what they're seeing here. And you can try to make up a backstory about it as well. Asking them like, why are they kicking this ball? Why do you think they're doing that? Would you want to kick this ball? Do you think this is a safe sport? Would your parents let you even do this? All kinds of questions like that you can ask in the target language. And then after you've had your discussion, you could jump into a write and discuss where you and your students create a text where you're talking about what your discussion was about. And then you could take and you could make a page where you have the picture along with the text that you and your students created. And then you could print that out, put them together, compile them, and then you'd have this like really imaginative set of stories or pictures along with like stories or just class discussions about what these pictures are about that would help your students to understand what they're reading. And I also, if you like doing this, if you try this and you love it, we do have Picture Talk in Espanol that you can try with your students as well. And I forgot to grab a link for it. So I'm hoping that someone else from the team can grab that link and throw it in the chat because I forgot to grab it for you guys. But Picture Talk has tons and tons of pictures just like this with all kinds of activities that you can do to go further into the pictures, take those discussions, turn them into a text, print them out, put them into a book together, and you've got great material for your classroom library. All right, so next thing, I've got my library, I've got my books, I've got all of the things that we created in class. We've got so much stuff to read. Now what? Because it can be a little bit daunting. So first of all, you need to prepare your books for the long haul. You need to protect your books against damage because let's face it, kids are going to be touching them. They're going to go through some rough times. So make sure that you reinforce the spine and the quarters. You can do that with like packaging tape, And just keep your books enticing and functional, because if your books look good, your students are going to want to read them. And the funny thing is, even if it's your students that damage them, once they're damaged, they're not going to want to play with them. It kind of is like, once it doesn't look good, they're like, oh, I really don't want to look at that because it doesn't present well. So keep your books in great condition just so that your students are still going to be enticed into wanting to read them. And hype your books, which Justin already talked about a lot. So that's awesome that I kind of followed him, and we can go back to Justin's hyping your books up. Get them excited to read, because the more that they read, the more language they're going to acquire. And they're not going to read if they're not excited. So make sure that you get them excited to read in some way. And I'm not going a whole lot into these last couple of things here, but we do have an inspiration guide specifically for using readers in your classroom. So I'm going to give you that link as well. And this goes into not just how to build an FVR library and keep it going, but it tells you some ideas for implementing your FVR program. And there's even some information about how you can do class novels with your students. So lots and lots of information about bringing readers into your classroom and succeeding with them. And that is it. So we talked about what kind of books to put into your library to start filling it out. We talked about how to fill your library once you've got those books picked out. How do you bring them into your classroom? How do you flesh it out when you don't have a lot of money for books? And what to do once you have your library. And there's tons and tons of information in that teacher's inspiration guide that I just gave to you. So thanks so much for listening. Again, I'm Melissa, and my contact information is right here, melissaf@vocesdigital.com. And if you have any questions or anything like that, please do reach out. I would love to hear from you.